Bill 44 I do not see as a serious attempt to grapple with the threats to legal protection from discrimination. This should have been an attempt to enshrine protections, and instead what has happened is there has been created additional discrimination against the same group that it purported to start out to protect. In other words, the government is taking back what they purported to give. So they purported to say we're going to protect, put in the grounds of sexual orientation as a prohibited grounds of discrimination, and they have resulted at the end of this bill by, in fact, establishing an additional tier by which members of that group can be discriminated against. I think, additionally, the government has created chaos by introducing ideology into our education system. And it failed to eliminate the conflict of interest that existed in the resolution of human rights complaints. In moving from a commission to a tribunal, it did not deal with the advancement of human rights and with the adjudication of human rights. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge the engagement of Albertans in this debate, and I want to thank them for their engagement in this particular debate. And I know we will have people watching this debate through the video streaming and Twitter and through various websites and reading Hansard after the fact. And in fact, we have people joining us in the gallery tonight. And I am always excited by that engagement of Albertans in the process of what we do on the floor. And I thank you, each and every one, even if we disagree, in engaging in that process. I think it's an important one for democracy. And what was interesting is that I think I could argue with great success that we are just starting the process of engaging the public in this debate, and in fact the debate will end tonight. But over the weekend, and I get it that some members on the other side are eager for that moment to come, but I don't think that's appropriate, actually. I think when you start to see the engagement of Albertans come up from a grassroots, you should be allowed to continue that debate, to hear from them as much as possible and to understand the effect that what we do on this floor carries on outside of these doors into the lives of Albertans. So we had a number of ways of engagement, and I want to start by recognizing the work of Oba Powis, who was a high school student from Lethbridge who was against Bill 44, and within a couple of weeks at his school of LCI in Lethbridge, collected 700 signatures and more than 24 supporting letters in his petition against Bill 44, working through his MLA, the member for Edmonton Lethbridge, and those, in fact, ended up being presented in this House. That was mirrored and carried on through a young woman who contacted me late Friday, Catherine Creelman, a grade 10 student at Archbishop MacDonald High School, who actually approached me to ask about how to do a petition on Bill 44. And when I wrote back and said, you know, I don't think you can get a petition done and me to get it through the parliamentary processes that are a necessity before we'll be debating it on Monday night. But if you sent me a letter, I'd be happy to table it in the House. Well, I did not. What was I thinking? I did not consider Facebook. And of course, she had a Facebook group, and she sent it out on Facebook, and by Monday morning, I had 84 letters. From students, many of them dealing with very personal stories. Some of them were more or less a template, but an awful lot of them were not. And that is a wonderful kind of engagement, especially from younger people that are in junior high and high school and university, to get involved and understand how legislation affects them. So thank you so much, Catherine, and all of the kids that were involved in that Facebook and in sending me letters. I think we often see in this House, and I sort of put emphasis on how much work and effort you put into something is sort of how I give back to it. So someone that takes the time to come out here and sit on these hard seats for hours and hours gets a lot of credit from me. Someone that writes a personal letter or an email, someone that comes and has a meeting with me or their MLA in some way, all of those are an investment of time and energy and thought into the process. Petitions, a little less effort involved, but still you're reading the prayer, you're taking the time to sign your name. Online petitions, a little less effort again because it's a little easier to hit the buttons. But still it is engagement, and it's important that we recognize that. So thank you to Catherine and the 84 students that got engaged that way. I was a little depressed earlier when I heard that there had been some 800 and 700 petitions that had been presented in the House, and then it was pointed out to me on one of the many electronic news outlets that it was an online petition, which, as I say, still counts. And I appreciate all of the effort that they put into it, but boy, I really prize those students' letters and emails. I also want to note the effort that was put into this debate by the Wild Rose United Church, who tried hard to contact me on Friday to talk about what their minister, Linda Hunter, could put into her sermon on Sunday and talk about in the church before and in the before and after activities. And in the end, we could not connect, but they did manage to write up quite an in-depth and thorough letter, and 75 signatures from that congregation that signed on to that letter. From the Alberta Northwest Conference of the United Church of Canada, a letter that was circulated last week, noting that at their conference, this resolution was overwhelmingly adopted by over 400 conference delegates, asking for the removal of provisions regarding education in Bill 44, and then going on to talk about how important they think human rights is and protection against discrimination for certain groups. So, again, thank you very much for those efforts. I want to talk a bit about the larger issues that were put into play. And essentially, for those of you that are following along, the debate in third reading is a debate on the anticipated effect of the bill once it is passed, because there's an assumption that once you get this far, it's going to get passed in amended state or as it was first presented. In this case, the government did present amendments, and those amendments were accepted. They have a majority to make sure that happens. But what we had happen with this bill was we started out, as the minister said, to make some administrative updates and corrections to make it a better functioning commission, and to include, finally, sexual orientation. We ended up with this additional, somehow purported to be a balancing, by putting in a parental opt-out clause, which is now commonly referred to as a parental rights clause. And that slopped over into affecting an entirely innocent group of people, and that is our teachers and those working in our school system, including the trustees. Because all of a sudden something that, if it needs to be, and let me underline that, and I would argue that the arguments are not strong that that needs to be the case. If it needs to be, that should be in the School Act. And in fact, as we're often told now, there is an ability to withdraw students from class if parents object on certain grounds. Now, so that process exists. It should be in the School Act. But what the government chose to do was to put in a section in this Act that then impacted an entirely different, and I would argue, innocent group of people, and that is our teachers. And it put them in a precarious position. Some would call it a chill, and that we are likely to see a chill come into the classrooms, because now there is a requirement that schools will identify sections of their curriculum that could stray into grounds that would be considered religious or dealing with human sexuality or sexual orientation. So they have to go through their curriculum and send out letters to all of their parents identifying that. They have to create a database. Just imagine how that's money that's going to be sucked out of your kid's education.